In 1744, a coin dealer named Amschel Moses Rothschild died in the Jewish ghetto of Frankfurt, leaving behind a small business and a young son. That son, Mayer Amschel Rothschild, would transform his father's modest trade into the most powerful financial dynasty the world has ever known. The story of the Rothschilds is not just a tale of wealth. It is a story about the nature of power itself and how money, when wielded with precision and vision, can reshape empires. Mayer Amschel was born into a world of strict limitations. Jews in 18th century Frankfurt were confined to a ghetto, forbidden from owning land, excluded from most professions, and subjected to humiliating taxes and restrictions. But Mayer had something the authorities could not control: an exceptional mind for numbers and an uncanny ability to recognize opportunity. He began dealing in rare coins and antiques, cultivating relationships with German nobility who collected such items. Through charm, intelligence, and an extraordinary work ethic, he became the trusted financial advisor to Prince William of Hanau, one of the wealthiest men in Europe. This connection gave Mayer access to capital and credibility. But more importantly, it taught him a lesson that would define his family's future. Proximity to power is power. Mayer had 5 sons, and he trained each of them in the art of finance, instilling in them discipline, discretion, and an unwavering loyalty to the family. In the late 18th century, he made a decision that would change everything. He sent his sons to the financial capitals of Europe. Amschel stayed in Frankfurt, Salomon went to Vienna, Nathan moved to London, Karl was dispatched to Naples, and James settled in Paris. Each son established a banking house, and together they created a network unlike anything the world had seen. They could move money across borders faster than any government, communicate through coded messages, and leverage information in ways their competitors could not. The Rothschilds did not just operate in multiple countries. They operated as a single entity across multiple countries, answering to no king, no parliament, no authority but their own collective interest. The Napoleonic Wars provided the Rothschilds with their greatest opportunity. Europe was engulfed in conflict, and governments were desperate for funds to pay soldiers, buy weapons, and sustain their war efforts. Nathan Rothschild, based in London, became the financial lifeline of the British government. He smuggled gold across enemy lines to fund the Duke of Wellington's army. He arranged loans. He stabilized currencies. And when the Battle of Waterloo was fought in 1815, Nathan was not on the battlefield, but he might as well have been. Through a network of couriers and carrier pigeons, he received news of Napoleon's defeat a full day before the British government did. He used that information to make a fortune on the London Stock Exchange, buying British bonds at rock-bottom prices before the market realized that Britain had won. This moment became legendary, and whether the details are entirely accurate or partly myth, the lesson was clear. Information is currency, and the Rothschilds controlled the flow of both. By the mid-19th century, the Rothschild family was financing governments, funding wars, and underwriting the construction of railways and infrastructure across Europe. They financed the British acquisition of the Suez Canal. They funded the industrialization of Austria and France. They were creditors to kings and advisors to prime ministers. Their wealth was immense, but their influence was even greater. They operated in the shadows of power, rarely seeking public office themselves, but always present when the decisions that shaped the world were being made. They understood that those who control the purse strings control the throne. In 1934, Hollywood released a film called The House of Rothschild, starring George Arliss as Mayer Amschel and his son Nathan. The film dramatized the family's rise, portraying them as outsiders who overcame prejudice and persecution to become indispensable to the powerful. It showed Mayer on his deathbed, gathering his 5 sons and instructing them to stay united, to trust no one outside the family, and to remember that their strength came from their unity. The film depicted Nathan's role in financing the defeat of Napoleon and his legendary maneuver on the stock exchange after Waterloo. But the film also did something else. It made the Rothschilds into symbols. To some, they were heroes who proved that intelligence and determination could overcome any barrier. To others, they became a convenient target for conspiracy theories and anti-Semitic myths that persist to this day. The truth, as always, is more complex and more interesting than either legend or slander. What the Rothschilds understood and what the film hints at is a fundamental truth about power. Governments rise and fall, monarchs are overthrown, borders are redrawn, but money endures. Those who control capital, who can move it across borders, who can lend it or withhold it, possess a form of power that is quieter but more durable than military force or political authority. The Rothschilds were not conquerors. They did not command armies. They did not rule nations. But for a time, they held the invisible strings that connected the economies of Europe. They were kingmakers without crowns, financiers who understood that in a world increasingly driven by commerce and trade, the power of the ledger could rival the power of the sword. By the late 19th and early 20th centuries, the world was changing. The rise of nation-states, central banks, and new financial institutions diminished the unique advantage the Rothschilds once held. Wars, revolutions, and the Holocaust scattered the family and destroyed much of their European empire. The age of the great private banking dynasties was ending, replaced by corporate finance, government regulation, and multinational institutions. The Rothschilds remained wealthy and influential, but they were no longer the singular force they had been in their golden age. The world had moved on, yet the name Rothschild still carries weight. It is shorthand for wealth, for secrecy, for influence. It is invoked in boardrooms and in conspiracy theories, in histories and in myths, and perhaps that is fitting. Because the real story of the Rothschilds is not just about one family's rise to power. It is about the nature of power itself. It is about how those who understand the flow of money can shape the flow of history. It is about how trust, information, and timing can be more valuable than gold. And it is about the uncomfortable truth that in every era, in every society, there are those who possess not official authority but something far more potent, the ability to make things happen, to open doors, to move the invisible levers that others do not even know exist. Mayor Amschel Rothschild died in 1812, but his vision lived on through his sons and their descendants. He built more than a fortune. He built a model for how power operates in the modern world, not through conquest, not through hereditary right, but through mastery of the systems that make the world run. Money is not just a tool. It is a language, a network, a form of influence that transcends borders and outlasts governments. The Rothschilds spoke that language fluently, and for a time, they wrote the rules. Their story is a reminder that power is not always visible, that those who shape the world do not always sit on thrones, and that sometimes the most important battles are fought not on battlefields, but in counting houses, exchanges, and quiet rooms where decisions are made and fortunes are won or lost in silence.